relax here. It's getting warm out, which means it is sundress season. Unfortunately, I am not the type of person who can walk into a store and find a well-fitting sundress. For the first part, I am a lot curvier than your standard fit model, and they usually do not accommodate the chest. The other thing that usually happens with sundresses is that they have little teeny tiny strappies that don't cover my bra straps, and I am certainly not going without. So looks like I'm gonna have to make my own. What I did is I went online and I was just kind of looking for some style inspiration. And what I was really looking for is something in a solid black. I know you think a black sundress, it's a little counterintuitive, but I figured if it was something like that, I could mix and match and style it in a bunch of different ways, and I could wear it for a bunch of different types of events. So I found this dress at Unique Vintage. Look at, it's like this gorgeous little black eyelet number. And I was like, this one is perfect. And it's basically a shirtwaist dress. And I do have several patterns for that, including the scout dress from Gertie's Patreon a couple of years ago. I have made a couple of versions of this already, so I'm very familiar with this dress and I do know that it fits me. So I thought that this would be perfect. The other thing is that I wanted to make sure that I did a full cotton eyelet. You see all of these gorgeous like white cotton eyelet dresses, and they're so adorable. So I thought, oh, let's do a little kind of spooky version and do it all in black. My issue is that all of the black eyelet that I found was a poly blend, and I know that it's an eyelet, which is like a big holy fabric, and you know, it's very light, but poly is still plastic, and like, no shade, I'm sure it's still very good, but I am a woman in my 40s living in Southern California. It's going to be summer and the earth is on fire. I need something that I'm going to know for sure is going to breathe. So luckily I was able to find a full cotton eyelet in black on Etsy. So I've just gotten that in, and you know your girl needs a deadline or else it'll never get done. Luckily, Bats Day at the Park is coming up. Bats Day is the unofficial goth day at Disneyland Park, where everyone is encouraged to dress goth and go to Disneyland and hang out. It's a lot of fun. It is the first Sunday in May, because May the 1st is halfway to Halloween, so you are fully in Halloween countdown mode. And so I figure if I can get it done by Bats Day, I will have this nice black cotton sundress that will take me through the entire summer. So that is the plan, and I finally got my eyelet in from Etsy, so I am ready to start. The pattern is the scout dress from Gertie's Patreon about 2 years ago when she did her Camp Gertie theme. And then just remember, if you are doing this eyelet lace, you do need to do a second layer for each of the pieces that are going to be opaque. So like this is the back bodice. I don't want people looking through and seeing my bra strap, so I'm doing a second underlayer in a solid black. And I'm going to go ahead and do that for all of my pieces that I don't want to be see-through. I do want to show off the lace on this fabric a little bit, so I am not going to underline the sleeves, so you can see a little bit of my skin through it, but again, that's just my arms, so it's fine. I'm going to take the eyelet layer and the solid layer for each piece and flatline them, which is where you just kind of baste two pieces of fabric together and then treat them like they're just one piece of fabric. I've sewn the darts on my flatlined pieces, and because you're just treating these as one piece of fabric, you'll see that inside the dart is actually both of the fabrics kind of layered up in there. This fabric is thin enough that I could do that, but when you're flatlining, generally you just treat both pieces of fabric like they're a single layer. This is the finished bodice. It just needs a really good press so everything lies really flat and crisp, and for me to kind of clean up any of those weird little threads that are dangling on. But look how cute this sleeve turned out. I'm gonna need the darts and seam lines at the bottom of the bodice as reference points for figuring out how to pleat the skirt, so I'm gonna move on to that next. The skirt is ready. I've already put in my pockets, I've hemmed it, both for the underlining opaque fabric and the eyelet fabric. The eyelet fabric doesn't have its own pockets, but it does have a slit so I can access the pocket in the underskirt. I've matched the seams on both pieces of skirt and the bodice, and then pleated the skirt to kind of go in between all the dart lines, making sure to leave some space at both ends because that is what we're going to fold over and put the buttons in. I've already hemmed the underlayer of this skirt, and I did it so it would be a couple inches shorter than the edge of the eyelet lace, so it'll have this nice little scallop effect along the bottom. Just an FYI, if you are going to use this fabric and you use one of these wrist pin cushions like I have, this has happened to me about 800,000 times while making this dress. Remember that the skirt is 2 layers and that the pocket was only sewn into the inside layer. So what I've done is I've just lined it up, and right over the pocket I have opened up the seam on the outside layer. So see, it's still sewn right here. And I'm gonna just go through and pick up little stitches and tack it down around the pocket opening. And if you see, I'm only doing the inside of the fold of this outside layer of fabric, and I'm just gonna go through and tack it down right at the edge, and I'm gonna go all the way around so that the pocket will stay nice and open, but you won't see any stitches on the outside. And then also the outside layer and the inside layer will still have independent movement for the skirt. So this is what it looks like when it's done, just kind of a little slit in the fabric, but you'll see on the inside it's all tacked down, so it's easy access to the pocket, but this is still completely free from the bottom underlayer. So, you know, if you want to twirl or swish or whatever, you'll still get that nice movement all the way around. My dress is effectively complete. It just needs really a good iron and buttons. I have made several versions of this dress, and the pattern says to do 3 buttons on the bodice part and then the rest on the skirt. But anyone who has a larger top might have that problem where the buttons placement makes you have that weird gappy thing, and then you can kind of see what's going on in here. So I want to make sure that doesn't happen. So instead of using the pattern button placement, I'm going to try to figure out the best place for me. I'm going to do 4 buttons, I think. So I definitely want one here at the apex, but I also don't want this button to be like pop. So I have to make sure that I distribute the rest of the weight. And then I think the other button will be about here. And then I will try to figure that and make it even all the way down. I'm gonna do 4 buttons on the top and 5 buttons down the skirt. Also, like, this is kind of cute as like a little jacket situation, right? I have 9 of these buttons. These are 3/4 inch buttons. Normally this pattern calls for 5/8 inch buttons, but I was just afraid that the little 5/8 buttons would kind of get lost in this, the eyelet. So I wanted to make sure there was something a little bit more substantial. So I went for 3/4 inch buttons, and I have 9 of them. So what I've done is I've marked out my 4 buttons that are going to go on the bodice. These are going to be 2 inches apart, 2 inches from the bottom, 2, 2, 2, and then this one is about the apex of the bust. So that should be enough to keep everything contained. And then that's going to leave me 5 buttons left. So that's going to go every 3 inches on the bottom of the skirt. And that's basically just to keep the skirt from flopping open. That should be totally sufficient. This is what I was really concerned about, because I just, you know, want to make sure I stay child safe for Disney. Since it's going to be Bats Day, I figured it would be the perfect opportunity to use my bat parasol. How adorable is this? I got this at Spring Dapper Day 2 springs ago, and I absolutely love it. It is adorable. The issue that I have with it is you have to hold on to it. There's no strap to kind of keep it closed, and the little tassel on it is purely decorative. I wouldn't feel comfortable holding it by this, and even if I did, it would just open back up. So I really need to find something like a strap to put on here. But then I was thinking the other issue I'm going to have is I do intend to ride rides. I am going to, Space Mountain, Big Thunder, Rise of the Resistance, all those things. So I'm gonna need to have this with me, and that means I'm gonna have to put it on the floor by my feet in the ride vehicle, and I don't want to get this messed up. So what I've decided to do is make a case with a little handle that I can use to keep this protected when I'm not using it and to carry it around. I'm going to start by measuring my parasol. The thickest part of the parasol is where all the internal hinges are, and that is about 7 inches. And then the actual parasol itself is about 19 inches long. I found this black cotton broadcloth in my stash, and I think this is going to be perfect for this project. It's a lot thicker than like a quilting cotton, so it should hold up a lot more to like the wear and tear of something that I'm going to be carrying around all day. Basically, I need a rectangle that is 7 inches plus some ease plus some seam allowance. That's going to be 19 inches plus some ease plus some seam allowance. And I could have done a lot of math, but I already have my ruler is marked off for cutting roller derby helmet cover centers, and so I'm just using that. To make the strap, I just used another piece of that scrap broadcloth and cut a rectangle that was 1.5 inches wide by 9 inches long. I've taken the larger rectangle, folded it in half long ways, and sewed it all the way down 1/2 inch from the edge. I'm just marking this with some chalk so you can see where my stitches are. So now I have a tube of fabric, and I am going to find the center between the edge and the stitching, because that's going to be kind of the center point of the holder. I'm going up 1/2 inch because I'm using 1/2 inch seam allowances on this thing. There's my point. It is 1/2 inch away from the edge at the center of the tube, not the entire piece of fabric. Now I'm going to go on my stitch line and on the fold line, and I am going to make a mark 2.5 inches from the edge. And then once I have this, I can go ahead and connect those points that I've just made to create kind of a triangle. And I'm going to stitch down this triangle shape, and that's going to be where the point of the parasol will fit. For the handle, I'm taking that 1x9 rectangle and I have double folded it almost like bias tape, and I've tucked one edge into the other so it gives a nice clean finish. And now I'm just going to run this through my machine and do an edge stitch. That way I don't have to turn such a narrow tube. Okay, and there's my little strappy. So I finished sewing this, and it occurs to me that it is kind of small. Now I do have like really small hands, so it goes over my hands super easy. But if that is not the case for you, feel free to adjust the size to make it however big you need it. So here is the main thing. So you can see I've stitched it. I also went over it with an overlocker just to give it a little bit more security. And at the top, I didn't sew it all the way, and I have folded it a little bit more than halfway down. So, but that is still thicker than this. So what I'm going to do is actually, this is going to be easier for me. It might not be easier for you, but you know, do what you got to do. I am going to put that in, and then I'm going to pin it so it catches a little bit of seam allowance, but not the strap that I just made. So there is like that extra little bit, and I'm going to go around and pin this whole thing, and then I'm going to just do an edge stitch right at the edge of this, and that will keep the strap in place and create kind of like a little drawstring effect. All right, I have my zipper foot set. I'm just doing a couple of test stitches to make sure I'm not catching on my strap. And here we go. When you're working with little twisty pieces, you just want to do a tiny bit at a time because you want to make sure that you're getting everything nice and flat. And you have to kind of keep digging out the under part, but it's fine. Everything is still nice and smooth. Going all the way around. I'm about halfway around. I know it takes a little bit. You need to kind of really get in there. Whoop, there we go. And feel free to pick your foot up and rearrange, and it's totally fine. So here it is. All of the ends are kind of tucked in. Everything was sewn down right at the edge. And then this strap comes out and it creates like a drawstring effect. So that way, you know, I can hold on to this loop and the parasol will stay nice and secure inside. So let's just get this thing flipped right side out. Since this tube is so wide, I really don't need any special tools to flip it out. I'm just going to use my hands and then try to find the point of the tube and pull it out. And once I have it, just put the parasol in and that will get the point nice and turned. Now I just need to find the loop for my drawstring and pull it taut. And there you go. Parasol holder is all done. And now I have this nice little loop that I can use to hold my parasol, and it is going to be protected all day. I am so pleased with how this dress turned out, and I am just in love with the swish of this lace. I think they said this was the biggest Bats Day ever, and I believe it. We were so crowded in there, and you can barely see me in the picture, but partially because right before they took it, some girl moved her head right in front of my face. It was so crowded, and people around me kept complaining about how hot it was, but I hadn't noticed because I was wearing my cute little cotton dress, and I was nice and cool. My little ghoul and I missed the baby bats photo op because it was so crowded. There was a celebrity baby there, but this is what the afternoon photo op in front of Small World looked like. While my parasol was perfectly secure on rides, the same cannot be said of the front lapel of my dress. I also met up with my friends from Main Street Pumpkin Day, another Disney dress-up day, the last Sunday in September, where we celebrate Halloween time at the Disney parks. And I already have a fun outfit planned for that one. My little ghoul and I had a great time at Bats Day, riding rides, devouring monsters. Side note, I would 100% run away with the doctor wearing this dress. Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.